Hi, this is Joe Bolen. Welcome to learning about VisualBasic.net. Today we're going to take a look at the Windows Form ListView Control. The ListView Control is a very powerful control. It takes a little work to program and set it up, but it's a very nice one to learn about. But before we get started, let's take a look at where our documentation for this video as well as others are as you study about the ListView Control. We're going to be having out at Enter the screenshot with data populated, showing you the control that I'm working with. And so you can go out there and take a look at it. If you want to redesign your own type of program, you can use it as a reference. Also, our code for this video as well as for others are out at pastebin.com/u/jboh. There you can take a look at the code, you can download the code, study it in more detail, and modify it for your own particular uses. And you can see not only the one for this one, but also for others that I've written. Also, we have out at YouTube other videos as well as this one at youtube.com/user/Bolen presents. So if you'd like to pause your video for a few minutes and write down these different links and then go out after the video and study the code in more detail, please do so. Otherwise, let's get on with our learning about the ListView Control. Well, let's start in and learning about what is a ListView Control. Well, a ListView Control presents a collection of items to be displayed in a specific view. So we're looking at a collection of items, and the items are called ListView items. Now there are 5 different views to the ListView Control. There is the large icon, the small icon, the list, tile, and detail view. We're going to be looking at the detail view in today's lesson, but I have out there at pastebin.com also a tree view and list view demo that shows using the small icons with the list view control. Now, the way to understand and think about the list view control is when you go to your Windows Explorer, you can display your Windows Explorer in the different modes of a large icon, small icon, list, tile, and display. Detail. So these are basically the way to understand it by looking at your Windows Explorer and changing your modes. Now let's take a look at what the list view has, and it's basically a collection of collections. And one of them is the column header collection, and this will define the different columns that we'll have in our detail view that we're going to be working with today. Then within that, we have the list view items itself, the collection that we're working with, and this is where we add the list view item to our collection. And the text property of the list view item is the first column that appears in our list view control. So remember that when we're adding that, the first one is that first column to our control. Now, as we add the sub items to our list view item and then add it to the items collection, those sub items become the other columns that are defined in our list view control. So we have the column header collection that's going to define the different columns. Then we have the list view items collection where we put in or add the list view item itself, and that list view items text property becomes what we see for the first column of our list view, and then the sub items of the list view item that we've added to our list view item collection has then our other columns that will appear on our screen. Now let's take a look at the events and methods that are associated with it. And of course, the first thing we do is we want to add to our list view item, and we use the list view items add method. And there we add a list view item that we have defined. Then we can also remove out of the list view control. We can do it with the remove at and give it an index location where to remove out the item from our ListView control, as well as we can use just the remove method as well. Now, the recommended way to do it is to remove at index, and if you're looping through and doing a remove at, you want to do it backwards. In other words, use a -1 step in your for next loop to take it away from your list view, because as you remove an item out of the list view control, those get re-scrambled with a brand new index. So you start at the bottom and work to the top, in a sense, to get the items removed out. Now we're going to be using multiple select as false, so we're only going to be removing one, so our index is going to be basically 0 when we remove it out, because we're going to get the one we've selected. We'll talk about that as we get into our code. Now, basically the way we retrieve the information is using the selected index change event, and it fires when the selected indices collection changes. Now, there are a number of different indices. We might use this as a checkbox list view control, and therefore we're going to see the checkbox type of indices. But basically we're looking at what has changed and we're retrieving that index. And since this one we're going to be only selecting one item out of our list view at a time, we can retrieve just that one row coming out, or referencing it. Then we have another one that's very useful, is the find item with text. So we can look and find a list view item that has the text that we want to pass into it. Now, there are a number of overloads to this particular method, and we can be specific and look at only the list view item text property, or we can also look at all the parts of the list view, looking at also its sub items. We'll be looking at, in this case, for our retrieval, we're going to be looking at only the text property. It starts from the top and works down, and it's case insensitive. So we'll find the first reference or not of a value that we passed in for being searched. So those are our basic ones to look at. There are others as well, and I highly recommend you go out to Microsoft Development Network and learn about the list view item control. Well, let's get into our code. Now, I have a demo starting program that I'm going to be working with. Let me go full screen here, and I've already got set up my text boxes, and I have 3 mask text boxes as well, and then I have my buttons defined for my clearing out of this area, for adding information from this area to a list view control, for updating the information I have of the list view control, or deleting an item out of the list view control. Then I have also a load from file and save from file, so that the items that I have in my list view control can be preserved after I exit the program by saving it to a file. And then when I start up the program again, I can load it back in from that file and repopulate my list view control. So I've got this already coded in the background, but we don't have the list view control yet in place. So let's drag and drop our list view control from our toolbox, and I'll put it right about here and let go. Then I'm going to take the resizing handles and size it and bring it over here to get the size set, and there we go. Now, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to set the anchor, so that as someone might hit on the maximize of the form or resize the form, this will be stretched accordingly. So I'm going to hit the anchor properties of my list view control. I'm going to click on it and hit it to have also the right and bottom, as well as the top and left. Now, one of the things too I'm going to do normally is change the name to a more descriptive name, but for this demo purposes we'll leave it as ListView 1 control. And what we're going to be doing is setting some of the other controls, and here you see the columns collection we'll be talking about. We also see that we can dock it if we need to dock it into the form. And then we have some other collections you'll see of which the items collection, where we have the items coming in, and then within it, it will have sub-items. Now, one of the things I'm going to be setting here is the find full row select. Instead of selecting just a column, I'm going to select the whole row. So I'm going to set that to true on that. I'm also going to have the grid lines turned on for this one. So I'm going to come down to grid lines and make that true, or on that. We'll see the grid lines click in place in a minute. And then I also want to go down to the multi-select location here. Normally we can select a number of different ones, but I'm going to only want one be selected at a time for this application. So I'm going to make that false. And then I'm going to also set the sort down here on that sorting. And it's going to use the ListView items text property without extra code. And I'm going to use the ascending on that. And then you'll see down here, I also have the ability to set the view. Now, once again, we have 5 views for our list view: large icon, details, small icon, list, and tile. I'm going to choose details. So I've set the properties for my list view. Now I could come in through the columns collection, but I'd also like to show you that we can come over here to the smart glyph and click on it of our list view. Once again, I can change the view to the different types. We're going to stay with detail. And here I'm going to go into edit columns and define our column. So I'm going to hit add to add a new column. This will be our first column. And this one I'm going to be calling it full name column. No spaces, because it's a name we're going to be using. Now for the actual header that displays, I'll say full name, and I'll put space in between it. And I'm going to make this 175, and I'm going to have it left aligned. I'm going to add another add to add the next one, and this will be my address 1 that I'm going to have. So I'll have it defined at address 1, COL for column, and then I'll give it the title address 1, and I'm going to make this also 175, because we could have some pretty long address names. Also text align left, and then I'm going to add an address 2, and I'm going to give it the name for the display of address 2, and also make it 175. Then I'm going to add one for the city. So I'll call it city, COL. Text display will be city. And I'll make this one also 175. Then I'm going to add one for the state. You'll notice the state's smaller. So we'll make state column. And we'll call it state to show up. And I'm going to make the size a little bit smaller than 60, which is the default, and make that 50. Then I'm going to add another one for the zip code. So I'm going to come over here and give it the name zip code COL. I'm going to call it zip code in my display. And I'm going to make this one only 100. And then I'm going to add the last one for the phone. And I'll COL. And I'll give the name of phone for the display. And we'll make the phone size 125. Okay. And so we've defined our columns that basically reference everything here. Now notice, I have full name column that I'll be using. This is where I'll bring in the last name and the first name, and I'm going to load it with the last name, comma, space, then the first name. The important thing to remember is when we design code and programs, we want to keep our field names atomic. In other words, we want to keep the things as small as possible and then build them up. If I use full name, it could get confusing. on that. But so I'm going to programmatically bring these together to become my full name column area. I'm going to hit OK, and we'll see our data grid view now showing up with the information we have, our detailed view. And one last thing I'm going to do, since we already have the code behind this ready to go, is with this selected, I'm going to come over to the lightning bolt of the list view. And remember, one of the main events is the selected item or selected index change event. Now, normally as I begin to do code, I would double click on this to create the procedure in the code behind it. But I already have the procedure behind it, so I'm going to hit the drop down and select that one to wire it up so that when the index changes on the ListView control, this event will fire off. Okay, let me save everything and let's run it and see if in fact it works. And we've got it up, running, and I've got data that I've got set populated in the code to use for dummy data. And let's see it in action. Right now everything's set, we've loaded it in. Let's say I want to go to my name and change it so it says Joseph on that instead of Joe, and then hit the update, and you'll see that it updates down below, and I've cleared out then the information ready for the next time and put my cursor in the first name text box. Let's say I want to get rid of Sam for some reason. I can hit the delete button and Sam will go away. So I've selected it, it populates, and the buttons become active for an action. Then I can also add something. Let's say I want to add something, and I'm going to first of all do an add with nothing there, and you'll see that I get my air provider that I've added into my form, and it says last name is required for my air provider, and it will not allow me to leave until I get it right. So I'm going to enter in Ralph Smith on that and hit add, and my air provider goes away, and I've added Ralph into my list, as well as I can delete Ralph out real quickly. Now I do not have in my test area these loaded up, so we can't see these work right now, but basically we've defined everything and it works. And you can see as I scroll across, we have our columns populated with data if there's data there to be displayed. Well, let's see how it's done a different way. We did this through graphically designing the columns and setting things up and setting the properties at design time, but let's do it the way I would do it, which is at runtime, or time that we process it. So let me switch over to that one, and we'll switch here, and here I have the one that I would normally code, and it has the same thing set up. The difference is I haven't defined anything. I just dragged this in place. Now the only thing I've done other than drag it in place is set the anchor. And once again, I've selected the ListView Control and I've set the anchor property to a situation where it's top, bottom, left, and right for the anchor. So as this thing grows, so does the code as well. So let's see how I take care of dealing with the coding behind the scenes of this, and we'll see how I define in code my ListView control versus doing it through the graphical user interface design method. Well, let's go to the code. Okay, one of the things I'm going to talk about first is I have the import statements for the things I'll be working with. Since we are going to be saving to a file, we'll need the system I/O in there. As also, I'm going to be working with the text a lot, so I have the system text brought in. Now, our class level variables we're going to be working with is the ListView item itself, and this will allow me to go to other procedures in the code and preserve that value as I go to other parts of the code. And so I have this at the class level being defined. And then I've hard-coded a file that's going to be in my debug bin directory, or it'll also be in the release on that as I process this. And the file name will be ListView items .csv. CSV stands for comma separated variable. And this is also a file type that your Microsoft Excel would be able to pull up and see as well. So the comma separated variable is what we're going to be using. So between each field name, we'll have a comma that separates them out. So I've hard-coded that particular part in. This is a demo, so we don't need to have it come in with selecting a file. Okay, let's take a look at one of the first things that occurs when we start this program, and that's the form load event. So I have my form events, and what I'm going to do as I begin loading in the form is I'm going to define my ListView 1. And so I've created a procedure to do that. Now, also, since I'm going to be working and testing a little bit, I've coded in a compiler directive here, and you'll see the # if debug. So if I'm processing this in debug mode, this code will run. Now, if you'll see me change this over to release, you'll see it gray out, and it won't be dark anymore. It means that this will not run if I'm running as a release mode compile. So let's go back to debug, and we'll see that I'm defining it, and then I'm going to load some test data into my list view, and then I'm going to set some buttons on that. We'll come back to these in just a minute. Let's talk about the form closing event. The form closing event is where we're closing out the form, and since I'm using the error provider, there could be a situation where I have an error outstanding, and it will not allow me to close it unless I set the eCancel to false. So as I come into the closing event, I'm turning on eCancel to false so I can gracefully exit out of the program if I have an error with the error provider showing. So this one is a little extra to add in because I'm using the error provider. So let's take a look now at defining our list view item, and it's down here on that. So I'm going to hit down here and open this part up where we see define list view 1. And here I define the properties that I did in the design time version. I'm doing it on the fly during runtime, making the view detailed view, grid lines true, full row select true, multi-select false. So I only want one item at a time to be selected, and I got the sort order set. Then I define 7 different column headers on that. I declare them first as new column headers. Then I go into the properties of each of those headers and set them. And you'll see that I've done that the same way that I did it through the graphical user interface on it. This allows me to quickly change the widths as I practice my dummy data, so that if I have it too narrow or too wide, I can adjust it and get it set ready to go. Then we come in, and after we define our different headers, then we add them to the columns collection. And here we see the add to the columns of our 7 headers. So this gets our data grid defined. Then if I'm running in debug mode, we also run the load dummy data procedure. And here I define the list view item, and then I do the begin update, which allows me to quickly add without other events firing off. And so at this point, I'm adding the first one, which is my last name, comma, and first name. So I have a full name added in. This will become the text property of the item. And then I have the sub items that I'm adding. And these are the other columns of the address 1, address 2, city, state, zip, and phone. So here we see the sub items being defined and added to our ListView control. So I now have the ListView item added in there with the sub items. And I do that for some other dummy data as well to get it set. Let me say all the data here, other than my name, are dummy or bogus people and locations. So don't try to call them. They're not real numbers. And then I end up at the end, after I've added in some dummy data, I have the end update to my list view. So this allows me to have some data to work with as I'm beginning to code and practice. Now technically we could strip this out of our procedure if we wanted to. I did want to have some dummy data to practice with in this demo. Okay, so we've got our dummy data there. We have our list view being defined in runtime versus design time. And let's now come back up, and I'm going to close out some of this area here so we don't have to see it all. And let's go into the events themselves. Let's bring back the form itself to remind you what we have. We have our text boxes, our mask text boxes that I've defined, and then we have our buttons, as well as our ListView control, and we define and code our ListView control. So let's take a look at these different buttons and how they work. So I'm going to go back to our code, come into this area of our code, and one of the things I want to bring to your attention first of all is the selected index change event. This is the one where when a person brings their cursor and clicks on it, selects a row on that, we're able to retrieve that information. So I'm going to look at the selected items count to make certain it's greater than 0. Then I'm going to take the selected items, and in this case I'm going to go with the first one selected, and in this case the only one, because multi-select is false. And I'm going to grab that selected item and add it to my ListView item. Now remember, I declared this as a class level variable, so I'll have it available throughout my code. So I pull that in. Then I'm going to go display that data. So I'm going to take my ListView item and populate my text boxes with the display data procedure. But if I have a situation where the items count is not greater than 0, then I'm going to clear out the data and get it ready to go again. So let's take a look now at our display data on that. So I'm going to click on the go to definition, and we'll see our procedure occur here. As we come into our display data, I have my ListView item that I've selected. I'm going to take the text property of the ListView item on that using the width. So I'm getting ListView item dot text, and then I'm using the split method, and I'm looking for that comma between the last name and first name, and then I'm going to put it into a field array. So I'll have basically a field that has 2 values in it, last name and first name. So the first subscript of the field array is going to be my last name text box, and then if I have something there, I can also put that into the first name text box. So I populate my first and last name with the full name that appeared in that field, and then I take the remainder of that list view and take its sub items, and I then populate the different fields, or I should say text boxes and mask text boxes that I have of my control. Then I set my buttons accordingly. In this case, since I do have a list view item displaying, I want to turn off the add button and turn on the update and delete buttons for this. Okay, that's our display data. Now let's talk about the other procedure that happens on that situation where I fired off the index change. I said I also have the clear data if I don't have an items count greater than 0. I want to do clear data. Also, I use the same procedure for the clear button. So let's take a look at the clear data that occurs when I want to clear out the button. So I'll go to definition, and basically all we're doing is we're clearing out the error messages in our error provider control. We're clearing out all the text boxes and mask text boxes with their value using the clear method. Then I'm setting the cursor into the first text box, the first name text box. Then I'm setting the buttons. In this case, since everything's been cleared out, I'll turn on the add button, turn off the update and delete buttons. I'm going to clear out my list view item that's part of my class level variable, and I'm going to clear out any selected item indexes that are on there so that I have a new selection ready to go. So that takes care of our clear data procedure that occurs when we fire the clear button or we do not have anything in the selected items area. Now let's come into doing the deletes. That's the easiest one. Let's go to our delete code on that. So I hit the delete button, and the delete button is very simple. I'm going to go to the list view, get the items collection, and do a remove at. In this case, I'm removing from it my selected indexes, and I'm using the first one, which is the 0, 1, because I've got multiple select set to only one row to be selected. So I'll have that one there, and I'm going to do a remove at, and that'll take care of that. One line does it all. Now there are other ways we could code this, and I just wanted to show you that I could also use the ListView 1 selected items 0 versus the indexes. And then also I could just bring in the ListView item that I have selected that's part of my class level variable and pull it out too. So these are other ways we could have done that, but I wanted to use the remove at, which is the preferred method to delete something out of a list view. So this is the one line that does it all. Then we go back to our clear data to get things refreshed and ready to go for our next time around. Now let's take a look at our add situation. So I'm going to come up here to our add button, and I've got a validate children method occurring here, and it'll be return back a Boolean true false. So if I have validated children, good data, then I'm going to process the code within. And one of the first things I'm going to do is take a look at that last name and first name, and I'm going to build up a full name. And you'll see that I bring in the last name, I then add to it the comma and then the space, then put in the first name. That builds up my full name. Then I'm going to take a look and say, hey, well, do you already have that one out there or not? We don't want to add something that we already have. Now, if I'm not worried about duplicates out there, then this part of the code is not needed. But I would like not to have duplicates, so I want to check to see if I have one already out there. So what I'm going to do is declare a new ListView item on that, and I'm going to use then the ListView find item with text method. I'm going to pass into it my full name, which is the text property of my ListView items, and then I'm going to also tell it not to look at the sub items. Now, basically what's going to happen is it's going to look for the first one in the list view that matches the full name that I have there. Now, if it doesn't have it, I'll return back a nothing situation, or if it does, I will have the value of and location of where that was. Now, we really are looking for nothing. We don't want it there on an ad. So if I have a situation is nothing on that find list view item, then I'm going to proceed to do my add list view item procedure that I've coded, and then after I've added it, I'll clear the data out. Now, the situation is I might find a previous one out there, and in that case, I'm going to have something here, and therefore I'm going to say you already have one, not added, corresponding list view item already exists. So I'm basically looking to make certain I don't have duplicates on that, and it'll come in down through the first one it finds. If it doesn't find it, it'll add. Now let's take a look at the list view add procedure that I have coded. Okay, and in this particular area, what I'm doing is coming back, rebuilding that full name. I guess I could have passed that in, but I decided to rebuild it here. Then I'm going to do adding a brand new list view item. So I'm doing items add, and this full name is the list view item, the constructor method that becomes the text property of that list view item. Then I'm going to add the sub items, in this case the address 1 and 2 to there, then the city, state, zip, and phone get added as sub items to my list view item, and that puts it in place. So that is the procedure. We're using list view items add, putting in our list view item that we defined, and we're in the constructor here, and then we're adding our sub items to it to get the rest of the columns filled out. Okay, let's go back up now to our code. And we, after we get done adding, we've added it to the list view, and then we're going to clear things, get ready to go again for the next time. The update, similar. We've selected an item. We come into the update button being clicked. At this point, we rebuild the full name again. And this time I'm going to do a find as well. And I hope not to find it or to find it. we'll see what happens here. First of all, I declare again a find list view item, and I'm going to go out there and search. Now, if I find it, then I will have a value here. If I don't find it, then the item has not been found. So once again, if I find it, I've found the first one in the list. But now I'm going to look at that one that I found's index and the one I'm working with's index. They could be different. I want to make certain they're the same. If they are the same, then I'm going to do my update list view item, passing through the list view item I'm working with, then clearing the data. But once again, if I find it and the indexes aren't the same, it's a different item, and I'm going to say you already have one existing. Otherwise, a situation might happen that we don't have, we have it, and we're going to do an update as well. So this takes care of procedure for updating on this, and basically I'm going to show you then this procedure that I've created to add it, update the list view item, and I'm passing into it the code or the list view item itself, so that I'm going to modify it by re-updating the full name, re-updating it with anything I've changed in the other text boxes to the sub items, and that takes care of getting that list view item updated that we have selected. So that takes care of updating, adding, deleting, and the clearing events. So let me close this part down. Let's go back and look at our form again. And so we've gone through and looked at these procedures. We've populated and taken care of things here in the list view. Let's take a look now at the load from file and save to file. If I have data in here, I'd like to preserve it. So I'm going to go to the save to. I'm just going to click on it to go real quickly to our event. And you'll see when I go to it, what I'm going to do is take a look at the list view items count. Well, if I have nothing in the list view, there's no purpose of trying to save it. So I'm going to exit the sub. But if I do have items, then I'm going to use the file stream and the stream writer to actually take care of saving that out. And remember, I hard-coded the list view items.csv and its path in this class level variable I defined earlier. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the list view item, and here I'm going to be using that split method once again to take it and break out that first list view item's text property. Here's that text property, that list view item. I'm going to split it out by using the comma to separate the last name and first name apart. Then I'm going to take that information and get it set for my fields. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the sub items. I'm taking their text property of the sub items, and then I'm adding the commas, and you'll see the commas being added here, here, and through here after each field is being written out to the file, with the last one being the carrier return line feed on that for the next line. So the commas are part of making it a comma separated variable file on that. And I have a very simple catch exception. This really needs to be more robust here, but this is a demo program, so I didn't code this information in. If you do borrow this, make certain you code this for more error catching activity, because you're doing a file I/O activity where you could have permissions or other kinds of problems dealing with the file. So we save the file, then we want to bring it back in. So I have the load button click event, and one of the things I do there is I first take the list view, look at the items, and clear out the whole collection with that command. So I clear out the list view, getting it ready to go. Then I turn on the begin update, just like I did in the dummy load. And then I'm going to use, in this case, the stream reader versus the writer, because I'm going to be reading it in. And you'll see here I have a field as a string array being defined. And once again, I'm going to take that field and split it up as I read the line into place with reading that line, then I'm going to split it up, and I'll have my last name and first name, and I'll have my full name defined, and so I'll have that all set. Here's where once again I use the ListView items add. I'm adding the full name in the constructor of that add, and create the ListView item. Then I'm doing the sub items on that with the remainder of the fields coming in on that. Remember, the split event is going to be the one that breaks these up into all these fields and allows me then to load the sub items as well as the full name that I built through this section. So that takes care of it. Let's once again watch it run on that. We'll see all that code in place. Hit start, and you'll see I have my dummy data, and I'll just change me real quickly to Joseph, get formal there, do an update, and that takes care of it. I'll take Sam, and I'll delete Sam out. I'll take John Smith and call him Johnny, and do an update on Johnny on that. So we can also then load from the file, pull in all the data from our file that we have out there, and then I can also save to the file anything I've added, changed, or updated as well. So this takes care of our ListView control, and I will stop the program now and show you where this file resides as a result of my processing. I'll come over here and click on the show all files, make sure it shows. Then I'll go into my bin folder where we did the debug, and you'll see then that I have the ListView items CSV, and I'm going to hit open. I'm going to hit open with, and I'm going to select, in this case, Microsoft Excel, because it is a one, and you'll see here, I come over here and format the lines to auto width. You'll see that there are the items that we worked with, saved to the file, as comma separated variable file on that CSV type file, not an Excel file, but a comma separated variable file. Now, if I were to show you this file as a text file, let me click on this again, and I'll open with, and I'll choose just Notepad. You'll see, in this case, as I expand this out, that there are the commas between our records. Here's a situation where I have nothing in there, and I have the two commas together. So this takes care of taking our records and preserving them as we add, modify, or delete our ListView items on that. So this is what a ListView item control does, and this is our comma separated variable file that we're saving to and working with. And so we've created a nice program. Once again, remind you that the image of the form is out at Imager, and pastebin.com/u/jboh has the code for you to take a look at as well. Well, hey, we've done a lot. We've gone through and learned about the ListView control. It's quite a robust control. It has a lot of different things to code for. And I don't want you to be timid and not try it. Get your hands dirty in the code and work with it, learn about how to use it. It takes a little while to master it and get comfortable with it. Also take a look at pastebin.com at the TreeView and ListView demo that I have there. And you can see working with the image file to attach to your ListView as well in that particular bit of code. Go out and study. You're going to have to really work and master this, but it's a fun control to work with. It has a lot of different possibilities of how you want to display your data to a user on that. It will take a little work to code, but it's worth the effort and making the user happy in their experience. Until next time, though, get your hands dirty in the code, go out to Pastebin and look and study about visualbasic.net. Take care.